And indeed, you are still watching Morning at NTV. My name is Romeo Busik, and of course, it is World AIDS Day. We did talk to Dr. Nelson Musoba, the Director General of the Uganda AIDS Commission, and now we're talking to the CEO, Chief Executive Officer for Cipla Quality Chemical Industries Limited, and it's none other than Mr. AJ Kumar, and he joins me right now on set to talk about manufacturing of ARV drugs locally here in Uganda, a milestone achieved over the years. All right, a very good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, and thank you for calling us here.
And of course, you're new on the job. You took over the mantles of Cipla Quality Chemical Industries Limited as of August of 2021.
Indeed.
Tell me about the last couple of months in this new job. How has it been for you?
I think it's very interesting, quite enjoying. I love always challenges,
Indeed.
and I think I took it as a challenge for myself. Very interesting, meeting a lot of people, giving interviews.
Indeed.
I think that's all part of the first 4 months what we are doing.
Indeed.
But we are on the right track. We're making good progress, and our result speaks for it.
But of course, you were there in 2020. You were there earlier, that is in February of 2021, as the Chief Operating Officer. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I started at QCIL in February as a COO, at just before the pandemic hit.
I see.
So I was the right place at the right time.
Indeed.
And the job of the CEO was to keep on operating. I think that was the task assigned, that how we should keep on operating in this tough time.
Indeed,
and
AJ.
do not create a secondary crisis.
Indeed.
Secondary crisis of not having availability of HIV drugs.
I see.
So yeah, it was quite a journey on the full last year, and we made good progress there as well.
And speaking of challenges, Mr. AJ, COVID-19 has presented numerous challenges, and how has it impacted you in manufacturing and delivering of HIV drugs, Mr. AJ?
So our industry is not any different to any other industry.
Indeed.
Right? We have workers and staff who comes to work at our factory. We import our materials to make the products.
Indeed.
So all the impacts of lockdowns, the border closures does have impact on our industry as well. And we did face those at the initial time. But I'm very glad to also say that we made out of it. So we learned new processes, we developed new processes. We worked with our stakeholders all across the board, right from our suppliers
Indeed.
to the freight agents, plus local institutions as well. And we came out winning. Actually, we did very well in the last financial year in terms of our capacity utilization. We did very well in terms of our OTIF. OTIF is on time in full. It's a measurement which our customer measures in terms of supplies.
Indeed.
And we were 100% on it.
I see.
So all our metrics with respect to operations and running a factory were spot on, and they were top of the class.
And of course, that was amazing when I was doing my research. Other sectors were actually affected, but for you, as Cipla Quality Chemical Industries Limited, you registered some growth in that regard. Not even some growth, you registered growth during the last 2 years. What precipitated that growth?
Yes, we grew last year by 48%.
I see.
And again, was because we early on looked into the problem.
And there was a demand for ARV drugs and so forth?
Yes,
services.
and our objective was very clear. What we took as an objective early 2020 when the pandemic hit, that we need to remain operational.
Indeed.
And that objective was well understood by entire force what we have at the work. We have a great collaboration, and because the objective was very clear, we were always focused in delivering it.
Indeed.
And you're right, there was requirement generated of ARV drugs across Africa because the borders were closed. I mean, I give you an example. One of our southern nation has a stockout situation.
Indeed.
And they reached out to us as the only sole supplier in Africa. And we supplied those goods in the record time. We got a big letter of appreciations from them as well for helping them out.
And you're going to be giving us information on that later on. But let's first talk about new innovations, AJ Kumar. Have you had any new innovations or any new drug variants put out on the market, courtesy of Cipla?
Yes. So the current first-line treatment, which is widely used, is called TLD.
TLD?
Yes, tenofovir, lamivudine, and dolutegravir.
All right.
It's a triple combination product.
What does it entail?
It has 3 drugs which is used. You take one pill in a day and you're okay, and you can just take one pill in a day continuously. We launched that product in 2 years back, exactly 2 years back in December or November last year.
Indeed.
In the last year, we launched a product called TLE 400, which is a low version of TLE 600, which was the first line treatment earlier on. And we see that the product has been picked up there as well. And what we're doing now is, there is one particular disease, TB, which is specifically in HIV/AIDS patient, is a big reason for death. We are planning to launch a product called QTIB. QTIB.
Oh, yeah.
It's a combination of 5 ingredients.
Which are?
It has different ingredients. I'll give you the list of the ingredients later on. But the product, what it does, it's used for prophylaxis. So you take the product. Yeah, it's like it's not PrEP, but it's a prophylaxis for TB in HIV patients.
I see.
And probably we're going to launch in...
Like if you're grappling with HIV and TB at the same time.
Exactly.
Wow.
And it's already recommended drug by WHO, and we're planning to locally launch it. We've submitted it to the National Drug Authority for approval. We hope to get the approval by this month and probably launch in this end of this month as well.
And of course, as you know, it is known, it's not a secret, you are one of the most active stakeholders in the fight against HIV. But on the sideline, have you been confronted with issues to do with drug resistance occurring from cases of immune systems going, you know, weaker among HIV patients as a result of this COVID-19 disease?
So we're not drug resistance specifically for the products what we supply, but we know that COVID-19 does impact with compromised immunity. And HIV patients, if they don't take their drug on a daily basis, the immunity is compromised. So we do request and keep on requesting all the people to adhere to taking the drugs as a schedule to all the HIV positive patients. But we didn't receive in particular any drug resistance related issues to the first line treatment what has been supplied now.
How did you circumnavigate the issues to do with supply disruptions during the onset of this COVID-19 pandemic to continue doing your work in the manufacturing sector?
As I said, that what we did, and we started with a very clear goal in mind to remain operational and avoid the secondary crisis of HIV drugs availability. And that objective was very clear. We worked with our team. We have a great collaboration among the team. But I also must compliment our supply chain team. They did incredible work in making sure all those nuances has been sorted out, and we navigate way out of the COVID-19 pandemic. Because we took the task very clearly, we put set of rules. We have also mechanisms to identify risk. So we trend all the data. Like, give an example. We looked into China, which is one of the suppliers of raw material to us. They had a power crunch. There is a power supply issues in the country. So what we did, we stocked up earlier, realizing that situation coming. And that stocking up allows us to continue operating and continues producing without having any impact of not able to supply the products in the market.
Indeed. AJ, there were recent reports of stockouts actually of HIV-related drugs in some countries. Were you contacted by any? This is the point where you diverge then.
Yes, we keep on. It's not just one, but we keep on we've been called by different countries to see if there is possibility, because within the African context and East African region, if you see, we are the only WHO pre-qualified site with WHO pre-qualified products. It's become a lot more easier for countries to accept our product because of that qualification. And we did burst contacted. We supplied on war footing to that country to support them during that crisis. We have gone up to the level we have converted passenger aircraft into cargos to deliver.
Indeed.
Yeah, so yes, definitely, and we still get calls to see if there are any requirements in that certain region. There are other countries which are also approaching us on that regard, and we do keep on supplying them.
Do you believe we are winning the fight against HIV? We're talking about 38,000 new infections being registered on a yearly basis, and we're now projecting, if nothing is done, to avert the teenage pregnancies and also the callous behavior of the teenagers and the older men between 45 and 49. That number might go back to 140,000 by 2030. Are we winning?
I think we had made significant progress. It's been 40 years, so journey has long, right? If you compare AIDS as a pandemic to COVID, there's a lot of progress happened in COVID space a lot quickly than AIDS. It took 40 years now, but there is significant progress. If I see some of the stats, 1990 was one of the target which was the countries have taken and UN had adopted. Uganda doing very well on that range. A lot of people, almost in Uganda, 90% of them are on the ART treatment. A lot of work is going on, but I think we still not there. The amount of funding and the efforts which have been put are not realizing the impact what we need to see. So there is still a lot of work has to happen, I do admit. I do think that the governments in regions has to collaborate on this area as well, as much as the funders are doing. And that there's greater emphasis which need to come on to make sure that we have awareness. I think it's very, very important that people know about it. People know their status. It's so important for them to be able to go and take the treatment. Those who are on treatment, they make sure they adhere to the guidelines. They make sure if they're on the treatment, they take it. And the prevention. I mean, there is no better way than to prevent. Prevention is better than cure. It's always said. So Yeah, I think if we keep
the first
on doing
stage of winning this war is knowing your status. But the men in
100%.
our country, Uganda here, are adamant to actually know their status because they do not want to suffer stigmatization and discrimination at the hands of the members of the public. Is it one of the factors that might actually dampen our resolve to win this fight against HIV? Men refusing to come out in the open and get tested for HIV.
I think that's true. And as a company, what we're also doing, we're putting a lot of publicity about knowing your status. If you see, go to our website, you'll see a lot of videos of people who are HIV positive talking about their status, right? It creates that level of comfort. And that's something you can speak about it. So there should not be any worry to speak about your status. You can live a very normal life if you're taking the treatment. So there should not be a worry to talk about it. Stigma is a problem, I think, but it can only be removed by education. You keep on educating people, you keep on bringing people who are there and sharing their stories, which inspires others to share and talk about their stories. And there should not be, it should not be stigmatized. I think the society is changing at large, and we see that the progress the society itself making in terms of understanding, I think that will change the perspective as well.
Very insightful conversation I'm having with Mr. A.J. Kumar. He is the Chief Executive Officer for, that is Cipla Quality Chemical Industries Uganda Limited. We'd like to know, you've been so active in the export market in relation to the export of HIV drugs. Do you have enough stock to actually supply us as Uganda locally and also the international market? How so?
So we are confident and we have capacity to sustain our growth for at least a few years to come. What we also did is we launched a program within our company called Continuous Improvement. It keeps on unlocking capacities by adopting innovative approaches. So I'm very confident. I think that we have enough capacity to keep on dealing with any demand generating out of the region itself. And we keep on working on a program which keeps on unlocking new capacities for us.
Indeed.
So we are okay with.
Any challenges you've experienced during that encounter as you try to export internationally and also supply us locally?
Yes, you do, right? So because everybody was adopting to new norm, and there was always nuances coming into, because people are trying to understand, and to the level whether you have to sanitize the drug itself, right? That was a discussion, which was strange. Yeah. Yes. So yes, it's an adoption to new norm. I'm very confident now because we are now dealing with the situation for 1.5 years of COVID, that there's a lot more understanding. And a lot of people now accept how we move. So I don't think now we are facing a challenge, but initially, definitely, yeah.
As we commemorate World AIDS Day, Mr. A.J. Kumar, what do you want government and other stakeholders engaged in this fight against HIV to actually focus on, and particularly what?
So for us as an industry, if I take the region and let's see EAC and three big countries, Uganda, Tanzania, and Kenya. All right. There are 4 million HIV positive patients.
Indeed.
As a company, we supply more than 10 million treatments annually for the first line treatment. I mean, as company whole, we supply more than 60 million treatment, but for first line treatment, it's more than 10 million treatments we supply annually. There is huge local capacity. The question to governments across the regions is there should not be any question on availability of drugs, at least for the region where QCL exists, because we have capacity, we have the first line product, we have a proven track record, we are WHO pre-qualified. So how we make sure that in this region, there is no shortfall of treatments for HIV. And in that, as an industry, we are available, and we have the solution available. I think governments and the institutions push to say how we leverage the region and leverage the local industry to make sure there is no shortfall. Right now, if you see around the world, most of the products are imported, and there is always that risk, which we have seen in COVID, and that the borders were locked. So how we flourish this part of it, how we engage together to make sure the local industry has been leveraged to avoid any shortfall of drugs across the region and across Africa as well.
Have you also been exploring the fact that maybe Cipla Quality Chemical Industries Limited could also expedite a community initiative where you go into the communities, divulge this information on HIV and the significance of adhering to ARVs among the teenagers and all those HIV patients as one of the models to actually, dampen the result of HIV being transmitted to most of the generations of this country?
No, we keep on doing that. One aspect of us is, because our motto is caring for life, right? Caring for life in all the forms.
Indeed.
And we keep on going through our channels to create awareness of AIDS. As I said, prevention is the first solution. Awareness and knowing your status is the second one, very important task, and then the treatment. So those two still remain very important and relevant to us as a company, because it sits with very much with our ethos. It's just not about making products. It's about caring for life at a large. So we keep on doing that, actually.
Indeed.
Yeah.
What kind of environment do you want to see put in place by the government to ensure that Cipla Quality Chemical Industries Limited is actually producing more ARVs for our population without any stumbling blocks?
I think we will very well supported over years by governments and the institutions of government, so we must be thankful. But I think as a regional approach, we do want to see that as a region how we operate, and how Cipla QCL just not remain in Ugandan company, but become a regional hub. A regional company to operate.
All right, as we wrap up this conversation, Mr. AJ, we do know that 43.2 million people are grappling with HIV all over the world. Right here in Uganda, 1.4 million people are actually grappling with the same. What are your parting shots as we leave? Talk to the HIV patients all over the world.
Thank you. I think the most important line is prevention is better than cure.
Indeed.
So try to avoid unsafe conditions where you end up being HIV positive. Know your status. And please stick to the drug regimen once you know your status. That allows you to live a normal life.
Indeed. And if you have TB and HIV at the same time, you need to heed to extra caution. My name is Romeo Bisiku. This is AJ Kumar, the Chief Executive Officer for Cipla Quality Chemical Industries Limited. Thank you very much, sir, for coming through.
Thank you very much for hosting us.
Looking forward to another encounter.
Thank you.
All right, look out for us. And indeed, that is AJ Kumar. The conversation was largely focusing on the HIV ARV regimen in that regard and what is being done in the manufacturing sector, courtesy of the Cipla Quality Chemical Industries Uganda Limited. There are over 43 million HIV patients. 1.5 million deaths have been registered this year alone. 2021 in Uganda here, 22,000 people have died and 38,000 infections have been registered. If Nelson Musoba and Uganda AIDS Commission do not get their 28.5 trillion Uganda shillings, that number is going to increase from 38,000 all the way to 140,000 by 2030 in that regard. So please, adherence to ARVs and also testing are one of the models through which we can beat this epidemic before it gets to the level of